All right, welcome to today's show. So, I'm going to share with you four things today. Number one, I'm going to talk about the debasement of the US currency and your dollar. Number two, I'm going to talk about the debt that the US is in overall and what the solution is for this. And number three, I'm also going to talk about how Bitcoin could potentially get to $200,000 this year and what that means for the MicroStrategy price as a result. And then number four, I'm going to give a real scenario today of like what actually happened to your dollar and how much you actually have to earn every year to catch up with the debacle that took place in terms of money printing in 2020, 2021, 2022. So we're going to get into all of that today, which is super exciting. And then first thing, of course, is this is not financial advice. So let's just get right in here. The information in this video is for educational and informational purposes. It should not be considered financial, legal, or investment advice. Do your own research, consult with a professional. So this is the main thing, is it's not financial advice. I'm just sharing with you my opinion today, okay? So let's jump in and go through those four things specifically. What does it mean for you with your money? That's what I want to talk about today. And I want to put it in really, really super simple terms. Because if we understand what the overall problem means to our dollar or our $100,000 or our $1 million or our $10 million, then we can look at it and go, what's the potential solution? We can also look at what's happened recently in the last year of 2024 in terms of the market cap for Bitcoin went up over $1 trillion, right? So it's about $2.2 trillion or so. Always fact check my stuff and look at what it's at in real time. So if you look at the market cap and the increase in 2024 of Bitcoin going up by over $1 trillion in market cap, it didn't go up by $1 trillion because of $1 trillion flowing into Bitcoin. The market cap increases not just by the inflows of money into Bitcoin, but it increases by other factors of the supply crunch, the demand. A lot of that comes from, other countries getting involved, institutions getting involved, the ETFs coming out, corporations adopting the Bitcoin standard, the political movements of Trump and other countries talking about creating Bitcoin reserves or stockpiles. So there's a lot of things that push the price up. So if we look at these things again, and we look at the main buyers of Bitcoin last year, which was the ETFs and also MicroStrategy, we can then start to look and just make simple theoretical price increases and what we could start to predict and wonder what could Bitcoin get to, what could MicroStrategy get to. But we can also just use some data, some really, really simple data. I like to keep things super simple because I want to use simple math and just simple data. And then we can create theories based on data of what we think could happen to the price. And the reason why I think this is important is because at the end of the day, we're all making financial decisions based on like what we think something's going to do in the future and what the price could potentially be in the future. And so it's important to look at this and analyze it from our own viewpoints and our own opinions and make our own decisions about this. So I'm going to give you some basic research that I've done, fact check everything I do. I pull from multiple different sources, but sometimes sources aren't always correct or 100% accurate. So you really got to do your own fact checking on this stuff as well. Okay. So we've got good evening from Italy. Good evening. We got my friend here, Financial Conspirator. It's good to see you too. We got TC there also. So good. So again, we're going to jump in. I'm going to take you through just simple stuff. This is going to show you like the predicament we're in with money printing, but why something can be done about it, and really why to recover from what happened in the US in terms of money printing in 2020 and 2021, you got to make 20% a year just to get back to even. Okay. And I'm going to show you why. All right. And this goes for other countries as well, because there's money printing taking place in other countries. And while a lot of other countries didn't have the 40% increase of money supply over a 2-year period like the US did, many countries had 20% increases in money supply over that. Or I should say not many, but there are countries that had a 20% increase in money supply in that time. So pay attention to this because it applies to every single country. It applies to every single currency. because you can use this as a model to determine what investments do I need to make. This is what I ask myself, because I'm not giving you investment advice, but what investments do I need to make and why to get ahead? All right. And I'm going to go through the examples with you right now. So the first thing to look at and jump right in here is number one, just understanding the US, and you could do your own research for your own research for your country on this. But if you look at the US economy and why the economy is struggling so much because of the money printing and because of the debt, you'll really understand this. So the first thing you look at is you look at GDP, gross domestic product. What does that mean in very simple terms? It just tells us how much money the country's making. That's it. Okay. Instead of GDP, that you just say, how much money do we make? Okay. All right. It's all the goods and services produced in the country each year. Okay. So it's like America's paycheck. That's what GDP is. All right. So when you look at the total GDP in the United States, basically America's paycheck in the United States in 2024 is about 29.37 trillion. Again, fact check all this because different sources might say different things. All right. So our GDP was 29.37 trillion, okay, in 2024 in the US. So the growth was actually 2.8%. So we had an increase. Obviously, growth means an increase from the prior year. Our GDP went up by 2.8%. So basically, America's paycheck went up by 2.8% in that year. All right. So what does that mean? And this is important to you because I'm going to compare this to your paycheck or your money. So this is super important to understand this, okay? And it highlights the problem. So stick with me on this because I'm going to get to the price prediction of Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. But we need to understand what the problem is and why something like Bitcoin is an intelligent option because of what's going on. All right. So this is important stuff. All right. So we look at this, and this is like a huge issue. We look at our growth, our America's paycheck increased by 2.8% last year. All right. Okay. America's paycheck. That's GDP. All right. So total value of goods and services produced in the economy. So now you look at the debt. All right. You look at the debt. And if this is the state of our nation, then this passes down to also the state of individuals as well. All right. So if our nation's having this problem, you then wonder why the individual doesn't get ahead. All right. Because the nation is going to create policies and rules and laws and regulations and all these things. And if the nation is in debt and the nation isn't surviving, how is the individual going to survive? And the nation then does things like printing money and all these things to get themselves out of debt or to solve the debt problem, which doesn't really solve the debt problem. They just print money to try and solve the debt problem. But if they're printing money, it screws you. Okay? That's what it does. So the printing of money screws your net worth. It screws the value of your investments. It screws the value of your dollar. It screws the value of your currency, whether it's a euro, whatever your currency is, it screws you. Okay? This is really important to understand. And if you look at the projection of the continuing of money printing, you can see that the screwing of you and the country and the individuals is not going to get better. It's not going to get better. So either you rely on the country to make some moves, which hopefully they are with the U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve that may come out. The states are certainly making moves, or you make some moves independently and don't rely on what the country does, and you just make some moves independently to get yourself in a better situation, okay? Because what the countries and the nations are doing right now with money printing is screwing you. Make sense? And directly you can see this data-wise on your wealth. Super important to understand this, okay? So when you look at the debt problem in the United States in 2023, the debt was 33 trillion. 2024 was 35 trillion. So the debt growth in 2024 was $2.3 trillion. Okay, I'm getting somewhere here in simple math. Just follow with me, okay? The interest paid on debt in the U.S. in 2024 was $1 trillion in interest. We paid $1 trillion on interest in 2024, okay? So the debt is growing 3 times faster than the economy. Make sense? Okay, the debt is growing 3 times faster than the economy because if our economy in the U.S. grew by $822 billion, just track me here. If our economy in the U.S. grew by $822 billion, meaning the growth, right? The growth was about $822 billion for the U.S. but the debt went up by 2.3 trillion, then the debt growth is 3 times the growth of our income. Does this make sense? Okay. So America's paycheck is whatever. The growth in 2024 was 800 and something billion, but America's debt was 2.3 trillion in terms of the debt increase. Everybody tracking this? So 800 billion, 2.3 trillion, 3x. Our paycheck is 800 billion in growth in the US, but our debt increase is 2.3 trillion. Okay, this is the increase of our paycheck, the increase of our debt. It's 3x. It ain't good. All right, it's not good. Right? So you look at this and you go, how do you solve the problem? Like, you're looking at the US's predicament is imagine you're taking home your paycheck, but your debt is growing by 3 times the amount of your paycheck every year. You'd be in a problem. This is what's happening in the US. So if you look at like what are the solutions for the US to get out if they just keep printing money, because it looks like they need to keep printing money because like they're not earning, the US is not earning enough money every year to keep up with the debt. So you either need to be super, super productive and create more and more income in the US to outpace the debt. So you need to rely the economy is going to grow so much to outpace the debt that we won't have to print money anymore, but that's not happening. So you have to understand that the money printing is going to continue to go on because there's no sound strategy right now for the US to get out of debt. And this goes for your country too. Go take a look at your country. I was researching the increase in the money supply in India, in Europe. Look at the numbers in 2020, 2021. You'll see massive increases in the money supply. Okay, so this money printing is going on all over the world. So we have a problem. So how do you get out of debt? You just print more money. That's basically the strategy right now. Or the GDP, America's paycheck, needs to grow. The goods and services that we produce every year needs to grow at a significant rate to outpace the debt. But it's not happening. That's not happening right now. Make sense? So it's like simple. If you make $1, but you're paying out $3 in debt every year, are you going to get ahead? No. If you make, I earned an additional $1 this year, let's say in 2025, but I had to pay out $3. I'm not getting ahead. I'm sinking myself more into hole. So if you look at the statistic in 2024, America's increase, right, in their paycheck was, let's say, $1, but their debt increase was $3. Not going to work. All right. So that's a problem. Huge, massive problem. How does this apply to you? I'm going to show you in just a second. Okay. How does this apply to the Bitcoin price? I'm going to show you in just a second. Okay. So that is a major issue. So now if you take a look at you, okay, because this whole debt problem in the US and debt problem across the world is a problem because every time we have to print more money to bail ourselves out, and every time there's a disaster in the world where we have to print more money, and by the way, the printing of money in the US since the beginning of the last 100 years, the printing of money has been an average of 6.57% every year for the last 100 years. So we always print more money, always. All right. So this will continue to happen. And the reason we're printing more money, one of the reasons is because we have to pay for our debt. It's the way we get out of debt. But it doesn't get us out of debt. It just makes the dollar worth less or your dollar worth less for you. So if you took a scenario, let's say in 2020 and 2021, you're sitting on $100,000 of cash. Some of you were sitting in cash. I know I had some money in cash until I had the realization with Bitcoin in 2018 and the realization in 2020 to go all in. I took all my cash and then I dumped into Bitcoin, but a lot of people didn't. They sat in cash, had a worry, had a concern of what was going to happen. So let's say you had 100,000 sitting in cash in 2020 and 2021. Okay. You got 100 grand sitting in cash then. How is this relevant to today? It's super relevant because you're going to see how much you would need to earn to make up for the disaster of 2020, 2021. So if you had 100,000 in cash, we printed 40% more money in 2020 and 2021. So just by the very fact that 100,000 sitting in cash, if you print 40% more money in 2 years, then your 100,000 in cash theoretically goes down to a value of $600,000 because your purchasing power goes down. That's not good, right? So, to put it into just simple terms, It's like, now you're going to the supermarket and you're wondering, like, why is it so much more expensive for eggs? And why is it so much more expensive for avocado and steaks and all these things? Why does it feel so much more expensive? Because it is, because your purchasing power is less, right? You have 100 grand sitting in the account. Let's say you had $10,000 sitting in your bank account and we printed 40% more money in 2020, 2021. That $10,000 is now worth what? 40% less because of the dilution. So it's really $6,000 of purchasing power. That's a problem. So anybody who knows anything in math or investing knows that when you go down 40%, like, this, if you've invested in something, you've lost money. So when your investment goes down and you lose money, when 10,000 goes down to 6,000, that's a 40% drop. To get back up to 10,000, do you know how much you need to earn? Anybody know? Put it in the chat box if you know. If 10,000 drops to 6,000, that's a 40% drop. To get back to 10,000, do you know how much percentage you need to earn to get back there? Anybody know the math? The math is you got to make 66% to get back. 66%. That's right. Michael says 66. It's 66%. So we print more money, 2020, 2021. You got $10,000 sitting in your bank account. The 40% printing of money over 2 years decreases your purchasing power because your slice of the pie just got smaller. Okay? Money supply goes up by 40%. Your slice of the pie goes down by 40%. So your $10,000 goes down by 40%. So theoretically, you now have $6,000 worth of purchasing power. You drop 40% by the money supply. You now have to earn 66% to get back. But here's the problem. That's just to recover from the 2020, 2021 debacle. But if the money keeps getting printed and it keeps getting printed and it keeps getting printed, you need to earn over the next couple of years 66% just to get back. But then the money keeps getting printed, so you keep having to earn more to catch up to the money that keeps getting printed in 2023, 2024, 2025. You got to keep earning more to catch up. You never catch up. You never catch up. Does it make sense? Does it make sense? If it does, let me know in the chat box if it makes sense. So it's a huge problem. Huge problem. Okay? And so understanding just this basic concept like puts one at cause, because if you understand the problem, then you look at what do you need to do. And then if you look at what you need to do, and then you look at Bitcoin, you look at, okay, why could Bitcoin be the smart choice? Or why could MicroStrategy be the smart choice? Not financial advice, just looking at this of why it's the smart choice for me. And you look at this and you go, well, why is it the smart choice? And then you can start to look at what could happen to the price in 2025 of Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. And we could look at the data at that, just like we analyze the data here. We could make a prediction of what could possibly happen. And we're going to do that, okay? All right. So I'm going to give you my timeline for MicroStrategy to 1,000. It's because somebody's asking that down below, okay? So we look at this, but let's just get into this next point. So you have this problem of the printing of money, right? 40% more money in 2020, 2021. So your 100,000 sitting in your account is now worth 600,000 of purchasing power. Your 10,000 now worth 6,000 of purchasing power. But now you got to catch up to the additional money supply and printing that goes in 2022, 2023, 2024. But the other thing you need to look at is the average person in the United States pays about a 23% interest on their credit cards. Okay? So now you're not just looking at the problem of the printing of money. I know this is depressing, but there's a solution that comes in here that's going to be very rewarding and you're going to like it, okay? So now you look at the credit card debt in the US and the average is about 23% that people are paying. So if one had 10,000 worth of credit card debt or 100,000 worth of credit card debt, now you're paying 23% on your credit cards every year. So when you look at the debasement of currency, which was 40% in 2020 and 2021, when you look at then 2022, 2023, 2024, which the printing of money supply was less on those years, but you look at the average you need to make up over a 3-year period is a minimum of 60%, 20% a year. You add in credit card debt, that most people are paying, and then you got to earn more even to get out of credit card debt. So at a bare minimum, just to recover from 2020 and 21, it's a bare minimum of 20% a year that somebody needs to earn over the next 3 years, which would be 2022, 2023, 2024, just to stay afloat and even. So when you look at the idea that one can earn 7 to 10% over the long run and win, it's not true. And it's not real, because you're playing the catch-up game of what just happened with 40% more increase in the money supply over 2 years in 2020 and 21, with credit card debt being 23% on average in the US for the average person. You got to earn more to catch up just from those 2 years of horrible money printing and the continuation of money printing and the US debt. The US is not taking enough home in their paycheck to outpace the increase in their debt. The debt payment was up by 3 times what the US took home in their paycheck last year. In terms of the increase of debt, it doesn't work. The math doesn't work for the US. The math doesn't work for the average US citizen. And it's why people are looking for, how do you make 20% a year? Thank God Michael Saylor talks about the predictions of eventually Bitcoin will level out, and over a 20-year period, it'll replace the concept of the S&P at 14% is good per year, when Bitcoin eventually will be leveling out at 30% per year over a 20-year period, is Michael Saylor's prediction. So good by him, because you will have to earn 30% per year just to catch up with the disaster that happened in 2020 and 2021. 20% over the next 3 or 4 years just gets you even. And to get ahead, you got to start earning 30%. So this is the real thing to confront of what's actually going on. It's not a good scene. So now, with the bad news out of the way, let's look at the good news on this of what's possible and what could potentially happen with the price and why, okay? Again, this is just my idea and my concept of what could happen. Again, if you listen to my predictions before, I think 150 is conservative of where we'll get with Bitcoin this year in 2025. I think 180 is like, okay, that's good. That's getting to be a bullish case for me. But could we hit 200,000? And let's look at how we could hit 200,000. And then let's look at what that means for MicroStrategy price prediction. Because remember, MicroStrategy's price is going up. It goes up at a 1.8x. Okay. So if Bitcoin doubles, just do this math with me. Okay. If Bitcoin goes to 200,000, let's call it a double. I know it's at 104 right now. But if Bitcoin goes up at a double, everybody track me with this, right? Because this is the premise here. If Bitcoin goes up at a double, which would be 2x, like a double, then MicroStrategy, which is trading at a 1.8x, would go up 3.6. Okay? I'm going to show you how it's trading at a 1.8x. I'm going to show you this because to its Bitcoin supply, just to give you simple math, if Bitcoin if MicroStrategy holds $10 billion worth of Bitcoin, which we know they hold a lot more, but this is just for illustrative purposes. If they hold $10 billion worth of Bitcoin, their stock value to that is $18 billion. Okay. So when you hear this term that's thrown around of the net asset value, right, of MicroStrategy, when you hear this term thrown around in terms of the premium, the NAV premium, basically all it's saying is that if for the $10 billion that MicroStrategy owns, even though they own more of Bitcoin, that the premium in terms of what their stock value is actually valued at, it's not valued at 10 billion, it's valued at 18 billion. Not valued at 10 billion, it's valued at 18 billion. So that's a 1.8x. And it's valued at because that's what the market is willing to pay, right? For the shares that the market has bought. So when you look at this premium around 1.8x, which people think is low right now because it was a 2x and 3x in 2024, who cares? Let's just go with the low number that it's 1.8x. Let's even just say that it stays at 1.8x. That means that if Bitcoin would double, then MicroStrategy would 1.8x that. So Bitcoin does a double, MicroStrategy does a 3.6. Everybody get this? Everybody tracking? Yeah. Okay. So that's how you get these figures of like a MicroStrategy price going from 350. What's 3.6x of 350? Do the math on that. It's over $1,000. Everybody tracking? Okay. We saw in 2024, whether it continues or not, I don't know. I'm just saying this is how it could get there. Do I believe it's going to continue? Yes. Okay. Are the indicators pointing to the fact that it's going to continue? I believe yes. All right. Did it continue and did it happen in 2024? Yes. Bitcoin went up by 120%. MicroStrategy went up by 350%. Okay. So we're not talking about we're talking about Bitcoin doing a double and MicroStrategy doing a 3.6. Everybody tracking this? Okay. So that's where I'm getting the math from. So let's just take a look at how potentially we could get there on this. All right. If you have any questions, just put it in. All right. So, great. So let's just look at this in the terms of and fact check everything that I'm saying here, because when I go to different sources, you see different numbers depending on the timeline. But if you look at 2024, MicroStrategy bought around, it looks like 250,000 Bitcoin, right? So the ETFs bought around, and again, fact check this, but let's just use this for numbers purposes, about 1 billion, over $1 billion, $1.2 billion, 258,000 Bitcoin purchased by MicroStrategy and 1.2 million purchased by the ETFs. Okay. So fact check all of this to check if it's real. All right. So anyway, if you look at the investment, we're just looking at, say MicroStrategy based on those numbers puts in 15 billion into Bitcoin in 2024. Let's say the ETFs put in 80 billion into 2024. And let's just say, and use a round number, that they put in $100 billion into to collectively into Bitcoin, right? $100 billion of inflows, right? So the market cap went up by over $1 trillion. All right. So we know that, like, if you were to just do the math and be like, wow, the market cap of Bitcoin is like over $2 trillion. And to get to a double in the Bitcoin price, we would have to have $2 trillion more move into Bitcoin. I mean, that's not true, right? Like, we need the market cap to get to $4 trillion because the market cap's over 2 trillion right now. But you don't need $2 trillion worth of inflows for that to happen. You need inflows to continue by the largest contributors and the largest people who produce the inflows, which are the ETFs, the sailors of the world, plus the supply crunch that's taking place. Okay? So plus the supply crunch that's taking place. All right? And so that's how you're starting to get this potential increase to $200,000 Bitcoin, is just looking at the concept and understanding, like, could we get there theoretically if MicroStrategy continues to buy at the rate that they were buying in 2024. All right. We know they have a plan to buy more Bitcoin. All right. We know they just issued their preferred stock and of 250 million. Will they issue more of that? I'm sure they will. I'm sure that go to $1 billion to $2 billion to more. We know that they're going to continue to tap the ATM and issue more common share stock. We know that they're going to do convertible notes, and who knows what else they have up their sleeve for 2025. So we know that MicroStrategy is a good bet to continue to buy Bitcoin. All right. And we know as they continue to buy Bitcoin and they get more Bitcoin per share for the shareholder, that this is a good thing, because as Bitcoin goes up, that means that the price in 2025 for MicroStrategy should go up as well. All right. So that's number one. Number two, we know that the ETFs are continuing to buy. They're continuing to buy Bitcoin. And if you look at the average of what was bought in January of the number of Bitcoin that were bought, the number of Bitcoin that were bought is more than the supply that's being issued every single day. So there's 450 Bitcoin issued every single day, right? The halving in 2023, when it took place in 2024, it was 900 Bitcoin per day. In 2024, it's 450 Bitcoin per day. The amount of Bitcoin being purchased in January of 2025 was way more than 450 Bitcoin per day, way more. So we know just by looking at that math, there is a higher demand than the supply that's actually being issued. A much higher demand for it. We know when we look at the over-the-counter desks that the supply is dwindling in the over-the-counter desks by almost 70% in the last 7 months. That's really good when you see the over-the-counter exchanges, their supply is dwindling by 70%. It was up super high. It went down by 70% in the last 7 months. So their supply in the over-the-counter, where the big players go make their purchases, is down by 70%. Other indicators of a supply crunch. We're only issuing 450 Bitcoin per day. We're buying more than that, right? Between the ETFs and Saylor and the rest of the people buying, much more is being bought than that. Will we continue to have a supply crunch in 2025? The answer is yes. Is the demand rising? The answer is yes. Because now we haven't even factored in the purchases that could happen from the U.S. states, that could happen from the U.S. government, that could happen from Czech central banks that they're announcing a $7 billion potential purchase because they could allocate 5% of the reserves. When you factor these things together and then you factor other countries that will follow suit, we have a supply crunch right now just with the ETFs and just with MicroStrategy buying. All right. So could we have a supply crunch continuing to go into 2025? We already got one. We already have one. And do you think that there will be more adoption by the states of the United States? There's 15 people now, 15 states now that are already applying and going through the legislative process to get approved to have strategic Bitcoin reserves for the state. That's just in the US. And do you think, I can't, if you're just joining us, you went back and looked at the example, you would have to have a complete and total moron sitting there in Congress to actually look at the current situation and to not create some type of Bitcoin reserve. You would actually have to not confront the facts and be totally evil not to adopt something like this. And I'm being very vocal about this. And the reason I'm being very vocal about this is simple. If you're a third grader could look at the US debt and could simply look at the 30 trillion or $35 trillion of debt that we're in, to simply look at the increase of our debt in relation to the increase of the American paycheck, which is called GDP. Our debt is increasing more than our paycheck. A third grader could figure this out. And you'd have to be the biggest moron on earth to sit there and look and go, we can continue to print more money to get ourselves out of this problem. Okay? You have to be either stupid or evil. It's one of the two. Right? So I can't see a world where the U.S. body that's been elected right now to go back and come together with this plan and figure out what the stockpile is going to be. I can't imagine in my worst nightmare even that they couldn't come back and say, we are going to do something with this. Because what's the other solution? I'll tell you what it is. It's simple. Either the U.S., and this goes for your country too, whatever country you're in, we need to start earning more money per year to outpace the debt. So far, we have not done that, friends. We haven't done it. Is it likely to happen? No. So that's one. Two, we need to start doing something with our treasury and the money that's sitting in the treasury that's earning, God only knows what it's earning, but it's not outpacing the printing of money. It's not outpacing the predicament that we're in. And it's certainly not being invested intelligently, because those investments at 4 or 5 or 6% in the treasury or 8% or 9% is not going to outpace the current predicament. You need something that is doing 20, 30% a year to get the U.S. out of the debt, which is the same thing for the individual because of the money printing that took place in 2020 and 2021. The individual who just got their purchasing power decreased by having their money in cash by 40% in those years has to earn 66% over 3 years just to catch up. Then you have more money printing and you got to earn more to catch up. Then you have credit card debt and you got to earn more to catch up. And you look at the U.S. and the U.S. is a mirror of the individual because the U.S. is in the same predicament. The U.S. doesn't take enough home in their paycheck to keep pace with their credit card debt or their debt. Metaphorically, they don't. So the only solution is we earn more as an American society by producing more, which Trump is making good decisions to say, hey, let's keep production here in the United States. Let's favor building American companies here in the United States, right? So for the U.S., this is a good thing, the decisions that he's making. Let's figure out the debt problem. It's not going to happen by printing more money. So you got to look at what investment, where can the US allocate their money into something that could potentially do 20 to 30% a year to dig ourselves out of the freaking debt. And the only smart solution is Bitcoin, period. There is not another answer. There's not. So if we hypothesize and go, okay, great, common sense. And it's not to say that they won't come back. And who knows, you could have some evil person who's sitting there on the committee that completely sways everybody else and goes, no, we don't have a problem, and convinces everybody else we don't have a problem. But a third grader could figure this out. A fucking third grader could figure this out. It's not hard. We have a paycheck every year called GDP in the United States. We take it home. Our debt of what we pay out is more. Do we have more money or less money? We have less money. Our only solution right now is print more dollar bills. When we print more dollar bills, meaning like this is a shake, I drink this goop all the time, and I pour water into my goop. It dilutes my goop, right? It's no longer as much goop. It's got diluted by water, okay? So when we pour more money or pour more money supply into the current money supply and we print it, it actually dilutes the value of that currency. The currency doesn't become as valuable. We dilute it. It's not hard to understand. At all. So, pending this body that Trump elected, which I think, because we are pro-crypto in this this political party, we are looking to move to make decisions to help the U.S. and to get ourselves out of debt. And so when you take a look at this group that's being assembled, they're being assembled to come up with a solution. And one who would look at the problem that a third grader could actually see we have a problem would come up with an intelligent solution. The solution is Bitcoin. Period. There is no more sound money on the face of the planet than Bitcoin. End of story, period. Okay? And the third grader could sit there and analyze the same thing and go, okay, great. Let's look at this thing now. Okay, we have a pizza pie or we have a supply of money. If we print more money, right, and the supply increases, does the value that you hold of that pizza pie, that slice, get more diminished? Yes, it does. Right? But if you have this pizza pie of Bitcoin and there's only this size of the pizza pie and it can never get bigger, right? And that means that you have a slice and everybody wants a piece of this pie that can never get bigger because there's only 21 slices in the pie and you've got one slice of the pie and the 21 slices are almost accounted for and there will never be more than 21 slices and pizza is one of the most popular and fastest growing things in the world. Do you think people are going to want more pizza? Yeah. And do you think if you have this pie and this is demand for the pie and there's only so much pie, the people who want some of that pie, do you think they'll pay more for that pie? Yeah, they will. They will. They'll pour their money and they'll be like, I'm willing to pay more for my slice of pizza because they know that the pie isn't getting bigger. And they know the people who own a slice or own a piece know that's a good thing because my piece is super valuable because if there's only 21 slices and everybody wants pizza, there's going to be a bidding war for the pizza, man. If it was the last pizza pie on earth, there are only 21 slices left and pizza was the most in-demand thing, everybody be bidding for that pizza. And that's what's happening. Everybody's bidding for a slice of the pizza. They're bidding. So if we look at it, could we go to a $200,000 Bitcoin by these factors? Number one, we know that the institution, the ETFs have been the biggest buyers. Will they continue to buy? They're already continuing to buy in 2025 right now. Will MicroStrategy continue to buy? Yes, they're continuing to buy already in 2025 and they have another plan to buy. Will states follow in the U.S. and continue to buy? Yes, it's only a matter of time where states pass their own legislation and they decide that they're going to buy Bitcoin. So states will start to buy. Will the U.S. come back with a strategic, just call it a Bitcoin reserve? Like, I don't think it's prudent to put anything else in there other than Bitcoin, okay? So call it a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Will they? Yes, they will pass something. They will come back with something. I can't imagine that they won't. And if they don't, they're stupid or they're evil. It's one of the two, okay? You either have to be stupid or evil not to pass it. So then you have that. And then you have the rest of the countries and many other countries that are following suit and other nations that are smart like El Salvador and Bhutan. And we have the Czech central banks that are looking at doing this right now. And we have so many different countries that are looking at this right now and following suit. So will the demand continue to go up in a world where the supply is only 21 million and we already have a crunch because there's more Bitcoin being bought every single day than there is being issued, right? 450 being issued a day. We're buying up way more than that. So will the price go up in 2025? In my humble opinion, yes, it will. Is it chopping sideways? Do you have to go through these moments of consolidation? Yes, it happens every bull run. It's been happening since I've been in this in 2018, since I bought my first Bitcoin then. And so it's been happening for that long. And MicroStrategy, does it trade like this? Yes, it's been happening since early 2024. It's not uncommon for MicroStrategy to trade like this. It's not. If you're on my video the other day, when I watched MicroStrategy go all the way up to 1900 to 2000 before the stock split, I held it. I owned it. I watched my freaking numbers go through the roof and my investment portfolio go through the roof. And then I watched it go from 2000 down to 1100, a 45% decrease in the stock price. We just shot up to 546. We shot down. We're now down at 350. Is that a 45% decrease in the stock price? No. But it's what is it, 30-something percent? So we've seen these moves before. This is what MicroStrategy does. This is what Bitcoin does. Okay. Are we having some type of consolidation right now? Sure. Are we having some type of price suppression on Bitcoin right now? It looks like it. Will we break out of it? I believe we will. Do I have a crystal ball? Should you take what I say as the gospel? Absolutely not. I'm just giving you just logical thinking of why I believe we're going to see a Bitcoin at a minimum of 150,000. But why I think we could hit 200,000 is based on what I'm saying right now. So with that said, what does that mean for MicroStrategy? Let's just do the math. Okay. Let's do the math. So the math is simple. Okay. If we look at the math on this, all right. So the NAV premium just means the net asset value premium. So let's just put this into English in simple terms. All right. So the example I gave you before is just follow me and write this down, because then you'll understand this. It's not hard, okay? So if MicroStrategy has $10 billion worth of Bitcoin, okay? $10 billion worth of Bitcoin. We know they have more. This is just an example, right? And the outstanding value of their stock is 18 billion. Okay. Then the value of their stock is worth more than their Bitcoin holdings. Does everybody get this? So what is that mathematically? When you increase 10, right? 10 billion, and then you increase it to 18 billion, it's 80% increase, right? Does everybody track this? So when you hear numbers floating around, so 80% increase, when you hear numbers floating around like 1.8x, when people talk about the NAV premium, okay, and they say it's 1.8x, or are we ever going to get back to 2x? When I give the example of 10 billion, but the outstanding stock value being 18 billion, it's an 80% increase. That's how you get 1.8x. Does everybody get that? Okay. A simpler example would be if it was $10 billion of Bitcoin that they had, but the outstanding stock value was 20 billion, then essentially it's not an 80%, it's a double. So it would be a 2x the value. Everybody see that? So their Bitcoin holdings at 10 billion, but the outstanding stock value is 20 billion. So essentially it would be a 2x value in theory. Does that make sense? So a 2x premium. So basically what that tells you is that people are willing to pay, they're willing to pay a premium, meaning they're willing to pay extra for MicroStrategy stock, which in its sense is just a bullish sign. People are willing to pay extra. Not to mention the fact that Michael Saylor is on the cover of Forbes recently, right? So yeah, the world understands what's going on. This guy's on the cover of Forbes. You have to kind of get that, you know, the value of this company has gone up by how many X over the last so many years? 50X, more than that. Okay. So, I mean, the value of the company's actually gone up almost 100X, because I don't think MicroStrategy would have sold when Michael Saylor was just doing an interview and said in 2020, if we tried to sell the company for $1 billion, that's probably what we could get for it. So right now the company's worth almost $100 billion. So they're 100x. So if you look at a company that's increased over 4 years by 100x, okay, anybody who's analyzing this and looking at this growth and then looks at the sound strategy that Michael Saylor is doing in terms of buying Bitcoin, they can then look at it and understand why the market is paying more for the stock, because the market overall is bullish. Forbes magazine is bullish on Michael Saylor. The world is bullish on what he's doing. And the world is bullish on Bitcoin. So there's a reason why the stock value is higher than the net asset value of MicroStrategy's Bitcoin. It just is. Okay. So if you look at MicroStrategy, what is their holding of Bitcoin right now? Is it 50 billion? Right? If you look at the value of the company's valued about 100 billion, just theoretically. Okay. That's 2x, but just theoretically, just call it that. Okay. So they're trading. You hear floating around, will we ever get back to a 2x multiple, 2x valuation, or not valuation, 2x multiple? Will we ever get back to that? Right now it's 1.8x. So if you look at the number right now being 1.8x, maybe it's lower as to today's stock price, okay? And how Bitcoin's price is today. Maybe it's lower, but it's around 1.8x. So now the way you get to $1,000 MicroStrategy price point theoretically is just this, okay? Bitcoin, let's say, is 100K, but for simple math, I know it's 104. Just say simple math, it's 100K, right now. Bitcoin doubles. It doubles, right? That means you have a $200,000 Bitcoin. Yeah? Right? Simple, right? But now look at MicroStrategy. They're trading at a 1.8x to their Bitcoin holdings. All right. So if their Bitcoin holdings are, just for simple math, 10 billion, and Bitcoin doubles, everybody tracking me on this? Bitcoin doubles, right? Bitcoin goes to doubles. Say MicroStrategy's holdings are 10 billion. Okay. Bitcoin doubles. That means MicroStrategy's holdings are 20 billion. Okay. So by basic math, like if Bitcoin doubles and MicroStrategy holds Bitcoin, then MicroStrategy should just double, right? Simple, right? So MicroStrategy should just double because they hold Bitcoin. That's what their company is made up of, is Bitcoin. So Bitcoin goes to 200K. MicroStrategy stock price, right, is 350 right now. Let's just call it. So if Bitcoin doubles and goes to 200K, then MicroStrategy should double and go to $700 price point. Yeah, that would be the way to go. Logically, that's what it would be. But that's not what the market sentiment is saying, because the market sentiment right now is willing to pay a premium for MicroStrategy. And the market is saying that it is worth 1.8x its Bitcoin holdings. Okay? So that means that you don't see MicroStrategy going at a double. Everybody tracking this? Okay? If Bitcoin goes to a 2x, then MicroStrategy goes to a 1.8x that, which would be 3.6. Everybody following me? Be 3.6. So if MicroStrategy moves the way it moved over the last year, and Bitcoin does a double, that means MicroStrategy could do a 3.6. Now, if you look at a 3.6 on a 350 stock price, it's well over 1,000. Everybody got that? That's how you get to the possibility that that MicroStrategy goes to over $1,000, because it's not moving, and it hasn't moved, and I don't think it's going to continue to move. When Bitcoin doubles, MicroStrategy is going to go up more than that. And I'm not saying in the current day or the current week or the current 2 weeks or the current 3 weeks. I'm looking at the price movement of what it did last year. I'm looking at the price movement based on this example of the NAV premium. All right, meaning what we're willing to pay. We're willing to pay a premium as stockholders right now, and we have been paying a premium. Anybody who's bought MicroStrategy is paying a premium. So the market's telling us that it's worth 1.8x. over its Bitcoin holdings. So if Bitcoin doubles, that means 1.8x of that, it does a 3.6. And right now, its NAV premium is the lowest it's been. It might have dropped down to 1.7 or 1.67 like a month and a half ago, but it's kind of the lowest it's been because the NAV premium's been at 2. Even last year it was at 3. So do we need to get even like say it's going to go back to 3? No, we don't need to say that NAV premium is going to go back to 3. You don't even need to say it's going to go back to 2. We could say that it stays at 1.8. You could do the math and say that MicroStrategy it goes down to 1.5. Even if it goes to 1.5, it's still going to move up higher than the Bitcoin returns itself. So that's my logic on why I'm in MicroStrategy. I'm also in Bitcoin, by the way. Okay, and I was in Bitcoin first, and my largest holding right now is MicroStrategy because I bought MicroStrategy in 2024 when the stock was really low early in the year, and so I had a lot of Bitcoin. And then I put a lot of money into MicroStrategy. And so MicroStrategy shot up so much that my portfolio value of MicroStrategy is a little bit heavier than Bitcoin. And it shot up so much because of the exact example I'm giving you of this NAV premium, which basically means that people are willing to pay more for the stock, period. And if you keep getting articles produced like Michael Saylor's on Forbes, if Michael Saylor and the team keep coming out with new products like they're coming out with their preferred stock that they came out with, which, by the way, is good for us as common shareholders because they're not tapping the ATM as much. So the preferred stock doesn't tap the ATM like the common issue of common stock does. But in the end, even when MicroStrategies issue more shares to buy common stock, as a shareholder long-term, this is good for us because it gives us more Bitcoin per share. So whether you like it in the short term and you're like, man, the price isn't moving, he's tapping the ATM, he's doing this, there's a whole variety of factors of why the price might not be moving right now. We can speculate, we can theorize, we can guess. But if you look at the bet over in MicroStrategy in 2025, my educated guess based on the data that I'm looking at is we are going to see MicroStrategy move up, and it's going to move up at a greater rate of return than Bitcoin moves up. That's my hypothesis on it. It has in the past. 2024, Bitcoin returns were 120%. MicroStrategy was 350%. So let's say it doesn't 3x Bitcoin. Let's just say it does a double to what Bitcoin does. Let's just say it does a 1.5x to what Bitcoin does. What would the stock price be if it did a 1.5x? You can do the math yourself, right? If Bitcoin doubles, then theoretically, it should be a layup for MicroStrategy to double and go to 700. Okay? But if Bitcoin doubles, and let's say that the NAV premium is not 1.8 and it goes down to 1.5, you're still nearing there towards like a $900 MicroStrategy stock price. So that's why I say when I'm looking at this, like my case of like, I don't see, like even if Bitcoin doesn't go to 200, I'm not sure if it would. I'm just showing you how I think it could. I'm more like Bitcoin's going to get to 180 is kind of my bullish case. My very bullish case is over 200. And then my conservative case is 150. But even if Bitcoin only does 150, I'm still looking that MicroStrategy is going to do a double. If Bitcoin only goes to 150, I still think we're going to see a $700 MicroStrategy price point. That's my prediction on it. Okay. So hope this serves you. But that's my idea of what I think is going to happen. I'm obviously very bullish on it. It's not financial advice on how you should invest at all. It's just what I think is going to happen based on what I'm seeing. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we do need a solution. We do. Okay. So everything I'm giving you is based on just, I'm looking at the data, fact check the things that I'm doing, come up with your own solutions and your own ideas and your own opinions on it. But I'm looking at the data. I'm looking at what MicroStrategy's done in the past. I'm looking at what I think they're going to continue to do in the future based on the plans. I'm looking at what Bitcoin has done in the past. I'm looking at what I think they're going to do in the future. And I'm making an educated conclusion of where do I want to put my own money. And then I'm looking at the problem with the printing of the money supply and what kind of detriment that put people into 2020 and 2021. If you didn't watch the first part of the video, go back and watch it. Because like, again, final closing point is if, and not if, we did print 40% more money in 2020 and 2021. So the purchasing power of every U.S. citizen on the face of the planet went down. And it went down in concept of that, 40% more money, 40% more in the money supply, that means your dollar got debased and devalued by approximately or anywhere around 40%. So to make up for that, just to get back to that and outpace that 40% money debasement over 3 years, you got to earn 66% just to get back to even. Then you factor in credit card debt that the U.S. is in, or that U.S. citizens are in. Then you factor into account the continuing printing of the money supply. You got to catch up even more. So the predicament is rough, and it's just what it is. And so Bitcoin being the smart choice, I believe it's the smart choice. And we don't know what the U.S. government's going to come back with. We don't know what their decision is going to be. We don't know if they're going to approve a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I really think they are going to. I just think they're going to in some form or shape. I think they have to. And if they do that, it's even more bullish for the price. But even aside from that, with Saylor and the ETFs continue to buy and states pouring in and other countries looking at this, I just see that we're going to continue to have a price boost in 2025. And I don't think we're at the end of the bull market at all. I think we're more than halfway through it, but I think we're going to see the next 5 to 6 months are going to be super fascinating. And I believe we're going to go up. And full disclaimer at the end is like, you also have to take into account the real considerations that every time in a past bull market that we've gone through the roof and the prices have surged, there's been a crash down. And so if you're looking at this to go that we will run up to 180 or 150 in Bitcoin and there won't be a correction, I don't think that's real at all either. There will absolutely be a correction. I don't think we're just going to continue to go up in 2025, continue to go up in 2026, and continue to go up in 2027. Every bull run at the end, we have had a price correction. Bitcoin dropped by 70 to 80% in the last bull run. So as you're factoring in the things that you're doing, if I'm looking at this in a new unit of time today, because I invested most of my money into Bitcoin in 2020, 2018 was my first purchases. 2020 was the majority of the money that I poured into Bitcoin. 2023, I bought more, and I have not purchased more Bitcoin since November of 2023. I am about to purchase more Bitcoin in the next 2 weeks because I have a life insurance policy that I'm emptying out, and I'm putting a significant amount of money into Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. So I will be buying at this price point. I'm hoping that it stays at this price point or lower so that I can get my money into Bitcoin and MicroStrategy. But I will be watching that money the closest, because that money over the next 5 to 6 months could shoot up and then could crash down below what I'm going to invest it at if I invested at $104,000. So that is something I'm absolutely looking at with new money that I'm putting in. With old money that I put in 2023, 2018, and particularly with MicroStrategy in early 2024, I'm in such huge profits in that no matter what the crash is, it's going to be hard for you to knock out my profits in that. So I will be taking profits from that. I'll be holding on to some of that long term, but the new money that I'm investing, I will be looking to take the majority of profits from that, and also taking out some of the principal of that, because I know we're going to see a run up in my knowing, and we are going to see some run back down. So when you look at price predictions for new heights, be very, very cautious to take that as that's where we're going to end up. If we go up to 180, do I think that's where we're going to end up? No. We're going to hit 180 and we're going to bounce back down. If we go up to 150, we're going to hit 150 and we're going to bounce back down. So one might ask, why would I buy Bitcoin now? From two perspectives and two reasons I have for it. Number one, if I hold on to my Bitcoin over a 4-year period, do I believe Bitcoin's going to go up over every 4-year period? Yes, I do. Okay. So I believe that Bitcoin's going to go up. So holding it long term, I'm going to be in a better position than when than if I just sell it and take the profits on it. Okay. So holding long term, but I have to be able to stomach and be willing to stomach the ups and the downs as I go through the bull market and we crash down, and then wait for it to go back up for the next bull market in 2027. So I would be willing to buy Bitcoin now, and looking at it from two perspectives. One, am I going to buy now, and am I going to time the top and take out a mega amount of profits? Or two, do I just believe in it so much that I'm willing to hold a good portion of it long term that I don't care about the price fluctuations? You got to decide what's the best choice for you, if there's any choice for you. Bitcoin might not be the right choice for you based on your opinions, okay? And then MicroStrategy has even more volatility. So the risks associated with buying into something like this now there's could be a rocket ride up and a huge dump down. Huge. So you have to be very, very, very cautious about investing in something at the current price point and be willing to stomach the ups and downs and the volatility and have belief that over 4 years, I believe this is going to be a winner. And if one is getting in now, they need to be watching this and paying a lot of attention and getting a lot of knowledge and a lot of education, because MicroStrategy is a volatile beast. Okay. And the banks and the institutions don't like it. I was on with my banker the other day. They don't like it. They're watching my portfolio swing by massive amounts with MicroStrategy. And so when the banks are going to give you loans or line of credits for your business, they don't like it at all. Despite with the fact that the new ruling that just passed with the banks, they don't like the volatility of MicroStrategy. So if you're ever looking to go get a loan off your MicroStrategy, the banks don't like it. Okay. Will they be more forgiving from Bitcoin as the Bitcoin rules pass and be able to allow you to leverage Bitcoin? Yeah, but to what value will they allow you to leverage Bitcoin? If you have $1 million in Bitcoin, they're probably not going to give you $1 million loan off your Bitcoin. Okay. And banks treat like your stock, right? Like in terms of a loan, even if you have an Apple stock and you have $1 million or $10 million in Apple stock, they might give you a 25% loan off, something like that. So you have to look at these things because there's the whole concept of like, I could take loans off my Bitcoin and be willing to live off the Bitcoin, right? And live off, there's concepts of like that floating around. Like I could take a loan off my Bitcoin and I could live off that and pay a small interest to the bank, and I could live off that without selling my Bitcoin. In theory, the concept sounds good if you're a large company that has billions of dollars and you're getting an interest rate that's a very, very minute part. But trust me, I talk to the banks, right? I know I've been dealing with the banks on this since 2020. I knew their viewpoint then, and I've talked to some of them because I have multiple bankers. I know their viewpoint now on it, even with the new regulations coming on the ones that I've talked to. And to them, whatever the rules are that pass, they look at it as still as a big risk. Now, it may change their viewpoint as they're able to make money off Bitcoin, right? But in terms of an individual getting a loan off their Bitcoin from traditional banks to be able to live off that loan over time, show me the banks that are doing that and show me the traditional banks that are doing that. I know there's some banks that are talking about doing this and are doing this right now, but I don't think that's a real strategy right now that one can count on based on the current climate. Okay. And if you have, an overwhelming opinion of the bankers in this industry who are saying, yes, we are willing to loan large amounts of money off Bitcoin right now, show it to me. Okay. So even though the laws are passing, be super mindful of that. Because right now, I don't think the banks are friends of Bitcoin. And I certainly don't think they still see it as a real asset to loan money off of, in terms of an asset that is like, oh, it's not risky for me to loan money to somebody who has Bitcoin as collateral. To them, they look at it as super risky. And the only thing they look at as not risky, not the only thing, but one of the things they look at as not risky is if you have cash. If you're just sitting in cash and you're willing to sit in cash, we'll loan you a large percentage off that cash value. Stock, no. Bitcoin, no. And then if you're in real estate, you have to decide what that is based on real estate investors, and I'm not a real estate investor. All right. Hope this serves you. Always look at also the upsides and look at the potential downsides. Yes, there's major volatility. So you need to look at the volatility of these assets and study them and know them and understand them and have a plan. Because if you just want to ride it up and ride the euphoria and you have no plan, you can be in for a rough treat of the euphoria ending and the crash. I lived through it in 2020. Okay. The ride up and the crash down. And when my Bitcoin portfolio then recovered and we finally broke past the all-time highs, I was like, wow, that was a great move. Over those 2 years, come on. You're sitting there going, wow, shit, man, I got 2 years to wait till I recover. It ain't a good feeling. Okay. So you have to get educated, be smart on what's best for you and your family, what you believe, what your risk tolerance is, what your financial situation is, what your specific situation is, because there is no general blanket solution for everyone. Do I think that people should own Bitcoin? Yes. But I think it also has to do with their knowledge, their understanding of it, their responsibility level of it. Because if one has no knowledge on the subject, their responsibility is going to be low, and their ability to control it's going to be super low. So one who has no knowledge has no real business investing in Bitcoin. One who has no knowledge of MicroStrategy has no real knowledge, no real business investing in it. Because how can you control a thing if you have no knowledge on it? You can't. You can't make good decisions. And when I say control it, you can't make the best decisions, right? If you don't have the knowledge. So get educated. That's the purpose of this channel. Get knowledgeable. Study, learn, and make your own conclusions on it. But there are mega risks that come by based on when you decide to put your money in these things, if you're looking at a short-term hold on it. Long-term, do I think there's risks in earning Bitcoin? Super low. Long-term in holding MicroStrategy, do I think there's risk in holding MicroStrategy? Low. That's just my personal investing opinion. Am I willing to ride MicroStrategy all the way up and ride it all the way down and not take profits this year? Hell no. No way. So that's my personal viewpoint. Hope it serves you. See you on the flip side. Hope you enjoyed this. Again, not investment advice, not financial advice. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I know some people think that some people have viewpoints of like MicroStrategy is a scam and Bitcoin's a scam. Everybody's entitled to their viewpoint. I welcome people to debate things and share their opinion. And I just always say, do the thing that you think is the greatest good for you and your family. That's all I want for anybody, is to do the greatest good for them, their family, and also mankind. And I think that Bitcoin is a great innovation for mankind. And what somebody decides to do, when they decide to do it, how much knowledge they have on the topic, and what a great steward they are of it, depends how good that is for that individual. Do I think Bitcoin is better than any investment out there? I do believe that it is the most sound money that's out there. Do I think MicroStrategy is going to beat Bitcoin this year? I do. So for me, MicroStrategy is a better investment, but I also have money in both. And with the money that I have coming in right now, because I emptied out a life insurance policy to put more in, I will not put it all into MicroStrategy. There will be an allocation between MicroStrategy, Bitcoin, and Tesla. Okay. So that's my my words for the day. I hope it serves you. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you're having fun with the new economy. It's exciting for the future. I'm bullish for the future. I'm optimistic about the future because we finally have the first, I think, sound money ever in the history of the world. And this is a really good, exciting thing. And I don't know if you look at the properties of Bitcoin, how one can really argue that it's not sound. It would just mean that somebody doesn't understand it. That's it. All right. Hope it serves you. See you on the other side.